Hello and welcome. It is a new season for the NTT IndyCar series. My name is Charlie Kimball. This is our new podcast, and I say our because I am joined by my beautiful bride, my wife, Kathleen. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, babe.
So throughout the year,
so we've been, Charlie and I have been together almost 16 years. I've been involved in racing since then, by proxy, and then maybe a little more intimately. I've always said that IndyCar is such a great sport to watch, but you need to know so much to enjoy it. And so one of the things I did at the racetrack for Charlie was teaching people how to enjoy racing. And
it was, and that'll really choke you up because everyone grows up knowing 3 strikes, you're out. And 4 downs to go 10 yards, or at least most U.S. sports fans do. I still don't understand icing in hockey, so we'll leave that to the Canadians. But the idea with this podcast is we talk a little bit about what's gone on in each race, how it's unique, what developed, what changes. I am prone to getting super technical. I think that's being the son of an engineer, having over 150 IndyCar starts under my belt. It's kind of second nature. Kathleen's really good at...
Charlie calls me the great translator. So I translate what Charlie's saying into more layman's terms and relatable terms. So someone who maybe doesn't have as much experience in IndyCar can enjoy it. I had the great pleasure of watching a lot of IndyCar races, sitting next to Charlie's dad, Gordon, who was a race car designer and engineer. So I got to learn, I got the experience of being able to ask the dumb questions and him be able to explain it to me. So I feel like I have this kind of middle ground where I know what someone who maybe isn't as technical needs to hear to understand what's going on.
That's right. So that's why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. Our plan is to do this after each IndyCar race. This weekend is the first IndyCar race down on the streets of St. Petersburg. Mm-hmm. I say the streets of St. Petersburg. It is a mishmash of city streets, city parking lots, and a runway of the Albert Whitted Airport there in St. Pete, Florida. So that presents some unique challenges, but as every new season begins, there is a lot of change. It has been almost 6 months since IndyCars ran in anger on the Nashville Superspeedway, crowning Alex Palou as champion last year. Back-to-back champions for championships for Alex. So we want to talk a little bit about what's new.
Well, we did. We made an outline of how we wanted this to go, and we've already messed it up. So we never did introductions.
That's what we opened with. No. I'm Charlie Kimball. This is my wife, Kathleen.
But I thought we would maybe do a little bigger, you had 150 IndyCar starts. You raced in Europe, did Indy Lights. So you just have this really technical know-how of how the road to Indy works and how IndyCar works. You've also been a strategist, whereas I am a lowly jeweler. As Charlie hung up his helmet, we took over my dad's jewelry store about 3 years ago. I have worked in the jewelry space since I was 14. So now we run the jewelry store on a day-to-day basis, and we have 2 littles. We've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
So as an aside, today's podcast episode is brought to you by George Thompson Diamond Company. Please visit georgethompson.com where you can look at custom jewelry and gifts that are ready to purchase right now. We will ship them overnight insured. George Thompson Diamond Company will ship them overnight insured to you. You can also talk to our sales and jewelry consultants through a virtual consult. The opportunity to schedule that is on our website. You can also find us on all the socials, which is where we get a lot of our IndyCar news.
Yes. So I wanted to preface this as our plan today is kind of go down what's changed between last year and this year, and kind of do a season preview of the race teams and the drivers. And I will say that between running the store and the kiddos and a hobby of tennis, I don't have time to read all the blogs and listen to all the IndyCar podcasts. And let's say like catch up on all the news. So anything that I know, I've learned through social media, Instagram, really. So that is preface. Charlie, on the other hand, tries to keep up on all the nitty gritty news.
I do listen maybe a little bit more. I think we both listen to Off Track with Hinch and Rossi.
Do.
Another great source of IndyCar news, wonderful travel blog, so many details about hot tips and tricks for traveling. I think they're really a travel blog that has an IndyCar problem, right? I'm not sure how it is. Anyways.
They also have like a horse racing problem, I think.
Yeah, they've got a lot of hobbies,
But I do get a lot of my news from there because I love both James and Rossi, and shame Tim.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure about that last one. Anyways,
let's stop rambling
on.
And moving because we have a lot to cover.
We do. There has been a lot of change. Really exciting start to the season. It always, for a driver at least, I felt like it always felt like the first day of school. Coming back after summer break, catching up with people. And yes, with preseason testing and content days and media days, you saw people, but never in their traditional roles. You either saw, or not everybody, excuse me, in their bespoke roles. Like at testing, you'd see mechanics working on the race cars, but you wouldn't always see the PR teams and the media teams and some of the upper management. Then you go to content day and it was all PR and media teams and some of the track people and some of the promoters. But it's not until you get to St. Pete that you see everybody from Firestone, from Chevy, from Honda, from Dallara, Holmatro, AMR, all of these people, the medical team.
Yeah, and I never went to the test days and content days. So St. Pete was always my first time to see all my friends and, catch up with people, and especially my wifeys who maybe don't live in Indianapolis. So we didn't have the time to catch up like over brunch or something. So it was always so great to see everybody.
But a lot of people have moved places. There are new faces in new places. There are totally new places. There are 27 cars on the entry list this year.
In the new charter system.
So there are, if I understand this correctly, there are 24 guaranteed entries in the charter system. Or there are 24 or 25 charters that exist. Yeah. And then I knew this at the beginning of the offseason a lot better as things were getting signed. It's a new charter system. There are 27 guaranteed cars per race.
And it's my understanding that the charter system is kind of like the NBA and NFL, that someone just can't start playing baseball with the Dodgers. They have to be part of the NBA. So now IndyCar has a league per se that you can't just bring a car and start racing, which you could have do before. You had to get an engine lease and you had to buy the tires and the chassis and stuff like that. But you could go spend your own money and go do that. And there could be Joe Schmo on the grid at St. Pete. But now that is no longer available. There's some clout and some
equity.
Yeah, there's some equity in owning an IndyCar team now with a charter.
And I would disagree a little bit. I think all of those pieces you mentioned, you can go buy an engine lease, you could go get a chassis, you could go get an entrance license, you could go get a driver's license, and all of those pieces were part of the system that created the charter. Yeah. This just codifies it a little more clearly, because I would argue that any Joe Schmo race team couldn't just show up and be cleared by IndyCar to go race, right? There is an expectation of...
You have to do a medical clearance.
Right,
and you have
all of those pieces. So I think that the charter system does a really nice job of taking care of the teams that have really invested in the health of the industry and the sport.
Yeah, I mean, they're about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Team owners like Dale Coyne, Chip Ganassi, Roger Penske, Ed Carpenter now, even Michael Shank, who came from sports car racing and has come back to, IndyCar and has won an Indy 500 with Elio Castroneves, was part of Elio's fourth 500 win.
Yeah, and they had an amazing streak of qualifyings last year with Felix.
Absolutely, right? They've got great pace.
Outstanding.
And okay, let's start there.
Okay.
They have a brand new technical partnership this year in Michael Shank with Chip Ganassi Racing. They historically...
And I want to stop and explain a technical partnership.
Okay.
So a technical partnership, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they share data. They share setup sheets. They kind of all work together. The two teams, even though it's Ganassi and Shank, they share all the information so that basically it's kind of like one big, 5-car team?
Yeah, 3 at Ganassi, 2 at Shank.
Yeah, so one big 5-car team rather than a 3-car team and a 2-car team.
Agreed.
Except like Shank's in charge of like paying and sponsorship for his guys, and Chip's in charge of paying sponsorship and the team.
So on the commercial side, it's 2 separate teams,
Yes.
2 separate ownerships. Part of what a technical collaboration, relationship like that provides is the opportunity for a smaller team like Mike Shank Racing to leverage the experience and knowledge of Chip Ganassi Racing.
And maybe it doesn't have like the research and development budget.
Doesn't have an R&D budget, or it doesn't have the personnel and time. And the other thing, they not only provide or work together on feedback, setup sheets, and data, as our Great Dane joins us here, is it allows Chip Ganassi Racing somewhere to put some of their personnel.
Yeah.
Right. Chip Ganassi Racing has slimmed down from a 5-car operation last year to a 3-car operation this year. And some of their engineers and chief people they like to keep in-house, they can get quote unquote farmed out to Mike Shank Racing to help support them. Often a technical collaboration like that provides dampers. The shock absorbers that go on the race car can be a huge R&D budget.
Yeah.
When you spread that R&D budget out over 5 cars instead of 3, it helps ease the pain of that cost. Now, what does Chip Ganassi get out of it, right? They're a champion.
But doesn't Shank like pay a dollar amount for that?
So there is a financial application for sure. Chip Ganassi gets paid for his expertise. Chip Ganassi Racing as a team, they get paid for their expertise, their knowledge, their setup sheets. They're a driver championship winning team and car. Back-to-back, multi-time. They've got incredible depth of experience with Scott Dixon, the Iceman and the GOAT himself. They've got Alex Palou, who is back-to-back champions. Right? At the NFL this year, they were talking in the Super Bowl about the Kansas City Chiefs going for a shot at a 3-peat. There are 2 3-peats on the line this year. One with Alex Palou in the championship, and Kiffin Simpson, a driver who was in Indy Next and has now moved up into IndyCar, starting his 2nd season. You know, they've got a stout team, and Michael Shank with Felix Rosenquist and Marcus Armstrong. Marcus came from Chip Ganassi Racing, so he knows those setups. He can help ease that transition.
He had a lot of like rookie success. Like he didn't win a race, but he had a couple like solid. I think he finished 4th one race.
I think he had some really good results. I don't remember what his best result was.
Especially towards the end of the year, I was super impressed with him. Yeah,
really, really good. Now, if I'm looking at the IndyCar graphic here, the one thing that stands out to me, IndyCar on Instagram, 2025 driver movements. The one thing that stands out to me is the team with no change.
Yeah. So let's see if you can see this. There are lines in between where the drivers change. Straight line, straight line, straight line for Penske.
So Team Penske, no change to driver lineup, no change to car numbers, car counts, same. So over the winter, they have been able to just focus on getting the job done. Now, the second 3-peat that's on the line this year is Joseph Newgarden, back-to-back Indy 500 race winners. And you and I sat in the grandstands outside of Turn 2 for the Indy 500. We watched the cars tails away into Turn 3 on the white flag lap.
I was sure Pato had it.
Pato leading the race. Joseph with a mega run, pops to the outside of Turn 3 and holds it. Not only holds his nerve, but holds the edge of grip, makes the pass, wins it twice in a row.
So, I mean, obviously they know what they're doing there. They've always known what they're doing there. Penske's always known what they're doing there. Joseph's so cool, so calm, so just laser focused. I mean, I think they're going to be tough to beat anywhere this year. I don't think they have a weak point anywhere because, like, whereas Joseph's so good on ovals, I think Will is just as good on street courses.
And like Scott McLaughlin has been investing so much energy. New dad.
New dad.
New dad.
We've got a couple new dads on the grid.
Couple of new dads on the grid this year. But I think Scott McLaughlin for me is the dark horse for both the 500 and for the championship.
I don't, can you call him a dark horse? I mean, he's in a Penske car.
That's true.
He's super good. I don't know how many races he's won. It's a handful. He's won on an oval. I think he's won on a street circuit. I mean, I don't think you can call him a dark horse. I think he's just a contender.
Yeah. And I think for me, what I have seen is he's invested in his knowledge base, his racecraft. He's taken a lot from Simon Pagenaud and from anyone who will answer questions. He's been able to look at Joseph and Will's data, and he knows how to win championships. He did that in V8 Supercars in Australia. Yeah, he's come over and really, really committed to the craft of IndyCar.
I've met him, but I don't know him personally that well. Like I do Scott or something like that. So I don't know how his brain works, but I know he's super quick. He's super fun to watch, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And we talked about Chip Ganassi Racing with their 3 cars. I will say we were maybe a little inaccurate when we said the only team with no difference is Team Penske, because the 3 Andretti cars in the 26, 27, and 28 are coming back. However, there has been a little bit of a management reshuffle and restructure. Michael Andretti is stepping back out of a day-to-day role. I believe he's still a part of the organization. There was a lot of upheaval at the beginning of the offseason about this. Is the Andretti name done in IndyCar? And it's not.
No.
Michael, Mario, even Marco coming back for another shot at the 500 this year. They have deep roots and aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I think that'll be one of the things that's going to be really interesting to see at St. Pete is the role that Michael plays on a race weekend. I mean, he was on a stand every weekend. You always saw him like in their management office, you rarely saw him just like hanging out at hospitality, right?
He was always working.
He was always working. So it'll be interesting to see. I won't be there, but you can report back how Michael, the role Michael plays this weekend.
Yep. It will be very interesting, honestly, and see how that structure filters down from the upper management, I would say, through the rank and file to the mechanics and how the drivers feel about it.
And I think we'd be remiss to not talk about the drivers.
Right.
I mean, Colton is
finished the season with a win.
Oh, yeah.
A very strong win at Nashville.
And he finished pretty good in the championship, right? Like top 5?
I think he was in the top 3 right at the end there.
And he's won. Again, so fun to watch. He drives that car like, I don't know, like it's on fire. It's so much fun to watch him. Kyle got his maiden victory last year, right?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. And I think he won another race last year, right? Did he?
You're going to test my knowledge here. I feel like he did, but I am not 100% sure where. So I apologize to Kyle for that.
But like super strong. And I think Andretti's kind of known as like street circuit kings, right? They're super strong at St. Pete, super strong at Long Beach, Toronto. They're really good there. So keep an eye out. And then Marcus, I think, had a really tough year last year.
He did. Yeah.
Kind of finding his way. But he's super quick. He won the 500.
Second in the championship.
Okay.
So,
sorry, Colton. I really should know that. Sorry.
And Scott McLaughlin finished 3rd.
He finished 3rd.
Will Power was 4th. So, when you're talking about Ganassi, Penske, and Andretti, the big 3, year after year, they locked out the top 4 in the points last year.
It's the big 3 anymore because McLaren has to be in the conversation as well.
Okay, let's move on to Aero McLaren. There is some change. Or you still want to...
I just want to say one more thing about Marcus. I think he's a great driver and has really embraced IndyCar, especially coming from Formula One. And we hear so much about how much Formula One is better. And I don't believe he believes it. I don't know. I think he's great. And I want to see him have a lot of success this season.
And Marcus did struggle last year for sure. Like you saw it at the 500, you saw it in qualifying.
Well, he had a car issue in the 500, right?
He was caught up in the first corner crash because he was on that last day shootout. He finished 15th in the points, only just ahead of Linus Lundqvist. So
he had a rough day.
And when the Indy 500 counts for double points, that really hurts your championship.
It does, and also like, you know, DNFs like accumulate, and every athlete has bad seasons. Like even the best athletes have bad seasons. And so hopefully you got that bad season behind him and you can move on.
That's right. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
For us, the 5, 6.
Oh, we forgot something about Ganassi.
Oh, we did. We did. Yeah, super exciting.
Super exciting.
Kind of inside baseball.
Yeah. I saw a post that my friend Julia did about her husband, Brad. And her husband, Brad Goldberg, was Charlie's engineer for like forever.
For like 5 seasons.
Yeah. Brad was one of Charlie's groomsmen when we got married. Great guy. And he is now Scott's engineer, which is so exciting.
So Brad started building from, and I apologize to Brad if I get his history wrong, because I will get it a little bit wrong. But he started building wiring looms at Chip Ganassi Racing while he was still in college getting his engineering degree.
Because he went through the engineering
program at
IUPUI. Yeah.
Yep. So he, ice hockey player growing up, got into engineering, was building wiring looms, started as an assistant, a performance engineer, won 500s and championships with Dario as a performance engineer. 2011, when I started, came on to run a car.
He was
my race engineer.
Yeah,
he was
your lead engineer, your rookie, or you guys were like rookie
engineer, driver together. And that relationship between driver and engineer is so important. It is critical because it's a communication of what the car needs, what the car has, and
how the driver's like driving style translates to the track, to the car, and all of that.
And so Brad and I worked really well together for a lot of years. He then went and ran a car in the Chip Ganassi Racing IMSA sports car program, won 4 GT races, and then came back and ran Marcus Ericsson to a 500 race win, which was really cool to see. It was so exciting to see him in victory lane again at the 500, but as a race engineer. And now to move up to working, or move over to working with Scott Dixon. I think anytime you get to work with Scott is a real feather in your cap. And and it's interesting because there have been quite a few race engineers through Scott's car the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, I haven't paid as much attention to it. It was Chris Simmons forever, right?
Yep. And Chris Simmons is now a performance director or technical director of Chip Ganassi Racing.
So he's the head engineer of all that.
And Julian Robertson is, I believe, running Alex Pillow. And then I think Ross is maybe running Kiffin Simpson. I'm not exactly sure the personnel. But the fact that Brad saw a photo again on Instagram from our friend Marshall Pruitt over at Racer of Brad, Scott Dixon, and Dario Frank Keating. And if that's not a trio of trouble, I don't know what it is, because Dario's continuing in his mentorship role there at Chip Ganassi Racing. Super valuable, and always keeps the perspective fresh for a driver like Scott that's been doing it for 20 plus years now.
Yeah. But no one, I think the thing I love so much about Scott is no one wants to win as much as Scott does. Even after 20 years winning everything, no one wants to win as much as he does, except for maybe Emma.
Yeah, except for maybe his wife. So that tells you something. In fact, he told me, I think I remember this, his teammates, when he'd get home from the racetrack, his kids would go, did you bring a
Poppy?
Yeah.
Did you bring me home a trophy?
Did you bring me home a trophy? No. And she'd be like, okay, and leave it, and just like walk out. Be like, I'm not interested. Okay, so
back to McLaren.
Back to McLaren. Since we're on the conversation and topic of engineers, we are both super excited for our really good friend, Kate Gunlock. She was a performance engineer under Brad Goldberg with me at Chip Ganassi Racing. She started working in Formula Fords and worked her way up.
She's a racer's racer. Like, she's so hardcore. I don't think I've ever seen someone who works as hard as she does. She
Never stops moving at the
Never
racetrack.
stops moving. She eats, breathes, sleeps IndyCar. And how can I make this car faster? And what can my role in this team be to make it better? And she is just a delight of a human. And I love her so much. And I'm so stinking happy for her to have this role. She deserves it. She's deserved it for a lot of years. And I'm just so glad that she's finally getting her chance. And with someone like Nolan, I think Nolan and Kate will really get along well.
Yeah, so she will be the race engineer and lead engineer for Nolan Siegel in the 6 car. Nolan part season last year, partially in the coin car, started it in Indy Next with a race win, I think it was at St. Pete.
He was the great sub last year.
Yeah, he was a super sub and then ended up in the McLaren car, committed to that role. David Malukas fought injuries last year, had an injury at the beginning of the season, and
not related to drive.
No. Had a mountain bike training incident. It happens. Like, I think that it's hard because as athletes, everybody wants to think we're wrapped in bubble wrap when we're not at the racetrack, but we still have
think that.
Well, you don't because you've seen it, but a lot of people think, oh, well, like, how could you get hurt training? And it's like, we have to train extremely hard and to the extreme because what we do in the cockpit is to the extreme.
Yeah.
And there are times where you deal with injuries and you fight through it. And sometimes, I mean, as an aside, personal story, I did ask a surgeon once if he could cut my pinky off so that I could race at Mid-Ohio after I broke my hand. You can still see the scar on my right hand.
He literally asked the surgeon, can I cut my pinky off and race this weekend?
Turns out most of your grip strength comes from your pinky and your ring finger. So they are fairly important. So he talked me out of cutting it off so that I would still have some semblance of grip strength for the future. So we are kind of wired differently, but injuries happen.
I wonder if David asked his surgeon if he could just like do some crazy like type of thing like that to get back in the race car, especially in a McLaren car.
Just like duct tape his hand to the steering. I don't know. Either way, Pato O'Ward in the 5 car finished 5th in the championship last year. The top 8.
He lost the Indy 500 by like
half a lap. 2 corners.
Nothing.
2 corners.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I was so gutted for him.
Yeah. And outside of, say, the big 4 now, right? Penske, Chip Ganassi Racing, Andretti Global, and Arrow McLaren, they covered the top 8 spots in the championship.
Yeah.
So I think Pato O'Ward is hungry. He won St. Pete last year, not on the racetrack, but in all intents and purposes.
I mean, he won, right?
He won after the winner was disqualified. So then you look at Christian Lundgaard, who's moving over from Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. It's a different vibe.
Yeah.
He's going from Honda power to Chevy power, so it'll be very different for him.
But I think I don't think it's any like Rahal's struggled the last couple of years. They've really had a hard time finding lap time, both on ovals and on street circuits and road circuits. So whereas Christian was like a bright spot. When they did have speed, Christian was able to capitalize on it. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in a McLaren car.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And
I do think McLaren works very differently to any other team on track. So I wonder if there's going to be like a culture shift that he's going to have to adjust to.
Well, I think coming from Europe, it won't be too atypical. I think some of that culture you talk about comes from the sort of McLaren organization being a Formula One race team and branching out into all these other programs. Other exciting news, Arrow McLaren, our good friend Tony Kanaan is now team principal.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He's gone from having like 4 last laps in IndyCar.
Lauren's husband.
Oh, sorry. Lauren Kanaan's husband, Tony. He went from having like 4 last laps in IndyCar 2 years ago to, and I have to explain that joke in a minute, to now being like the guy and head honcho at Arrow McLaren, which is a big deal. Super awesome. I think Tony's the right guy for it.
And he loves that team.
And he loves this sport. And like Scott, like Dario, like Brian Herta, like Michael Andretti, been around forever.
He's really old.
I try and remind him whenever I can that he's super old. I joke about the 4 last.
We do have kids that are the same age, though.
Yeah, so that
I think that makes us
old too. The joke about the last lap, excuse me, is Tony's like, "Oh, I'm retiring after this year," and then he came back the year after and was like, "Oh, one more time. Oh, I'm gonna do the 500 again."
But wasn't COVID a part of that? Like
there
he
was.
Didn't get to do his last race in May at the 500 with his fans.
With fans. And when you talk about most popular, when they introduced Tony Kanaan and the whole Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 350 plus thousand fans go crazy. I get it. I mean, we really love Tony.
We do.
The fact that he doesn't get dad jokes, though, due to language barriers is the best part, because there is a group text with Lauren, his wife, Kathleen, and myself that is like bad puns and dad jokes because Tony just doesn't get them.
With his like language barrier, like English is a second language. He speaks English very well. He doesn't get like the nuances of idioms. It. I also think he thinks they're just stupid, like most of the world does. So Lauren and
how dare you? How dare you take that back?
No, most of the world thinks they're stupid. You don't, and that's fine. And neither does Lauren. So Lauren has to share them with somebody, so she shares them with us, and it is a delight in our day whenever we get a text from her.
Absolutely. Moving on.
Okay.
Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan Racing. Last year,
they have new digs, right?
Moved into a new building. Graham Rahal Performance moved into a new building nearby. I think
coffee shop,
Rivet Coffee Shop up there. Graham's Kart Club. I don't remember what it's called, and I'm sorry, Graham. I'm drawing a blank on it. Concourse, maybe. And it's supposed to be an amazing place for high-end car storage, hangout simulators, kind of a car country club style in Zionsville, I think, in Indianapolis. But great new building for them. Also new drivers.
Yep.
Graham Rahal, the only consistent, driving the number 15 car. Pietro Fittipaldi, not on the grid for this year at the moment. Christian Lundgaard, we talked about moving to Arrow McLaren. Devlin DiFrancesco making his triumphant return to the series, along with our Indy Next by Firestone champion, Louis Foster, moving into the 45 car.
Yeah, Devlin was at Andretti for maybe 4 years, 5 years, something like that?
I think it was 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was over there. He had some decent finishes. It'll be interesting how he does at Rahal. And then Louis Foster, I mean, good on him getting a shot.
And his momentum, when he got rolling in Indy Next, untouched.
Unstoppable.
And like not winning by like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like as a broadcaster for Indy Next last year, he made it very difficult on us because he would just run away and hide, and we'd be talking about the race. And every now and again, we'd have to be like, oh yeah, this is the race for 2nd through 6th because Louis Foster
20 seconds
is disappeared. He's a full straightaway ahead. Okay, Louis Foster wins again, but look at this battle for a second. So,
is he the first rookie we've talked about?
So far this year, yes.
Yeah, so I do think making that leap, at least for you when you did it, and I think James, not to speak for him, but James had a similar experience where like it's just very overwhelming moving up. The demands on your time are so much more. The demands on track are so much more. The competition's so much better. Not that Indy Next is not great competition. It's just, I mean, Louis Foster's racing against how many championships, right? So
yeah, his experience is going at the end of this season. He's going from 0 to 1 year of experience.
Yeah.
Scott Dixon's going from 25 to 26, right? Like
right.
Willpower. You talk about all of those race wins, those race. There's 600. There's probably, I would argue, there's probably 1,500 IndyCar starts on the grid, and Louis Foster has 0 before this weekend.
Are you going to do the math on that for next time?
I might have to look into it because it's.
You could text Arnie, I bet.
Yes. Yeah. The statisticians at IndyCar are some of the best in the world. But yeah, Louis got a big hill to climb, but he's got Graham's experience to look off.
Yeah.
Devlin's
and he's
experience.
These tracks before.
Right. This is not all totally new.
No.
I think the month of May for anybody is a big energy consumer.
It's exhausting.
It's a long 2.5 weeks with the Grand Prix and then qualifying and the race itself. So
I do hope he takes a moment to soak it in, because it is cool. You're only a rookie once. There's nothing like it. It's so overwhelming, but also, I mean, I'm not a driver. I just experienced it from being your partner at the time. Like, I think it's easy to get caught up in a bad result or a bad qualifying, or just not having the pace one weekend and forget, oh my God, I'm one of 27 drivers getting to drive this race. How cool am I? How cool is this?
Yeah, it's really cool. Well, we need to get rolling through the rest of the grid. We've got a few more teams to talk about. 2 drivers in new places this year.
Yep.
Stingray Robb coming out of the AJ Foyt racing car, moving over to Juncos Hollinger Racing in the number 77 car, and Connor Daly back in a full-time gig. Yeah. The kid grinds, and I say kid, he's not the kid he once was, but Connor continues to grind and manufacture opportunities.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he is super good on short ropes.
Yeah. Oh man, like what he can do at Gateway and places like Milwaukee and even Iowa.
But
it's really
Stingray,
impressive.
do you have like an impressive time in testing?
Yeah, so
like
the Juncos cars were really quite good down at Sebring in the open test last week. So we'll see if that translates.
Yeah.
It's a new tire coming out of Sebring into the first race, and Sebring is Sebring, and when people say that, for me at least, a lot of times you're not chasing lap time, you're chasing development, you're chasing like a to-do list, you're chasing some foundational things to learn from going to the first race, because it doesn't always translate. But Stingray Robb got married over the offseason, so congratulations to Stingray and his bride, Connor. Molly.
Yeah.
Yep, and Connor Daly in the 78 car back full-time.
Big fan favorite.
Yep, huge fan favorite, especially in Indianapolis. Growing up there, Doug Bowles.
President of the Speedway and IndyCar now.
Yep, big industry news there as well. So 2 new drivers, but Connor did finish out the season and got the Juncos car healthily back into the leader circle conversation at the end of last year. Yep. Moving on, Ed Carpenter Racing with a rebrand.
Yeah.
New drivers.
New driver. Well, no, one new driver.
One new driver. Christian Rasmussen staying on after his rookie season.
Yep.
Former Indy Next champion as well. Into his second season, joined by the 100th running in the Indianapolis 500 race winner, other multi-time race winning driver, and horse racing tycoon now, Alexander Rossi.
And pilot.
And pilot as well. Yeah, I blame him for really getting me a pilot's license. So
he didn't get you a pilot's license.
No. He got me interested, and then once I was bitten by the bug, it was all in. Yeah. But I think one of the fun nuances of this season is Alex Rossi and his team owner, Ed Carpenter, both own an airplane together. They fly it a lot together. Mm-hmm. I'm real curious to see if the weekend goes wrong.
Well, we'll hear about it.
Yeah, if Alex ends up on a commercial flight home and Ed kicks him out of his own plane, how that all works.
Oh, I'm sure that they are adults and they can work it out. Like, that's not stuff that actually happens. But say that now. Well, yeah. I am, just by listening to Alex and James on their podcast, I am interested. It sounds like ECR is better funded than it's been in a long time. It was kind of known as this team that didn't have as much research and development dollars, along with like Foyt and Coin and stuff like that. So
they were always in the front part of the conversation, especially during the month of May.
I mean, they're always
for the midfield team.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As a midfield team outside of the top 4, the big 4, they definitely punched above their weight during the month of May.
They're always in the conversation for the pole and top 9 at the Speedway.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see how this translates. I'm interested to see how Alex transfers going from a bigger organization like McLaren and Andretti to a smaller organization like Ed Carpenter. I suspect he's going to do well, just knowing his personality type. And but I'm excited to see what they do. I love Ed with so much of my heart, and Ed and Heather, and I love Alex and Kelly. So I really hope them all the success in the world.
And for Christian, I'm really excited because watching him in Indy Next, as he worked his way up to IndyCar, his first season in a new formula, if that was Indy Next or in IndyCar, it was always dynamic. It was a little up and down, showed bright spots, but maybe didn't put things together. Second season, that momentum turned on and took off like a brush fire. He was always so good in year two, and I think that has every opportunity, partnering with a guy like Alex who brings a wealth of experience and depth of experience.
Yeah.
A lot of different racing, a lot of different places. I mean, the man, Mr. Rossi's won the Baja 1000. So like kind of a breadth of experience that can really help Christian turn that corner, get to that tipping point, and take off.
Yeah. And then AJ Foyt Racing.
AJ Foyt Racing, the only team outside of the big four that we talked about to finish in the top 10 in points last year.
Oh, is it so?
Santino Ferrucci finished ninth. They racked up top 10s like they were going out of style.
I think consistency was really...
And speed, right? Like, you can say consistency.
But they finished third in the 85?
Yeah, they were in the top 5.
Or was that last year? Before? I don't know.
And Santino sat on the pole at Portland last year. So to have AJ Foyt Racing see that resurgence, part of that's a technical partnership with
Penske.
With Team Penske, for sure. But it's a two-way street. And I think, like we talked about with Shank and Chip Ganassi Racing, it's a conversation back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not just, here, put this on the car, see it at the end of the weekend. There is dialogue and engineering going back and forth. Yeah. And you saw that with Penske's growth at the Speedway in the Indy 500 and Foyt's growth and development on road and street circuits.
Yeah.
And that's the reason those collaborations exist.
Yeah. And this is just intuition. Like, there is no actual data for me to be saying this. It seems like Santino is a very like instinctual driver, and David's maybe a little more methodical. Would you?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen necessarily enough. When David Malukas was on driving a coin car, he could put that thing on his back and carry it up 3 or 4 spots further up the grid.
Yeah.
And one of the pieces of advice I had early in my career from Chip Ganassi was, if you've got a 5th place car, go finish 5th with it.
Yeah.
If you crash out trying to take a 5th place car to 3rd, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And don't take a 5th place car and finish 10th.
Yeah.
David Malukas was really good at taking maybe a 15th or a 12th place car and finishing 2 or 3 spots further up.
Yeah.
So he was really good at maximizing what he had.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't have like any give up. Like, he just keeps going.
So it'll be interesting to see how the relationship between David and Santino develops this year, the continued consistency and growth. AJ Foyt Racing has had some engineering turnover over the winter.
I know you told me who, but I didn't.
Michael Cannon, who's been known as kind of I don't know what the word is, but an incredible engineer. He's been around a long time. He's a little bit of a witch doctor at the Indy 500.
Yeah, but like, he's not so much of a team player, right? He's not.
I mean, if the ends justify the means, the results have spoken for themselves for years.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
Wait, is he there?
He left Foyt last year.
Yeah.
And he is currently not at a team after spending the offseason at our new team, and is no longer employed there. So
at Prema.
Yes.
Okay.
So there is some speculation about where Michael Cannon ends up, if it's for a month of May program or what that all looks like.
So who's engineering the 4 and 14?
So the same race engineers as they had last year, Armbruster and, oh gosh, I'm going to miss this.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Larry. But
I guarantee you Larry's not going to listen to this.
Cannon was sort of technical director there.
Oh.
So,
okay.
We talked about Shank.
We talked about Shank with Felix and Marcus Armstrong. Felix, is a whiz at qualifying. I'd love to see him carry that qualifying through the race, because if they can do that, they're going to have a really, 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 really great year.
And I think that's probably a lot of what they have focused on in the winter. If it was my team, that's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah,
right? We've got one
that, like
pace.
Driver temperament, and how much is that the team support?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, it's both. Okay. It's always both. And I think it exists in a way that the team can look and say, how can we've got the 1 lap pace.
Yeah.
How do we turn that into 90 laps?
Yeah.
How do we turn that into a full 30 lap stint on tires as the fuel? Like, if I'm them, I'm running more simulations with full fuel loads, right? Yeah. What does that do to the loads and the dampers? And it's also maybe one of the reasons they can try and keep the 1 lap pace they had with Andretti and use the race winning long distance pace that Chip Ganassi Racing had.
He's so good at that.
Right? There are times where they qualify. And there was a race last year, and I don't remember.
Qualified last and won a race. Like what? Last year or the year before?
That's Scott, but because he has a refinery under his right foot. But as a team, they qualified like 12th, 14th, 18th, and 19th, I think maybe at Iowa. And they finished like 1st, 3rd, and 5th or something. Right. So
yeah, I remember that.
So some of that results, I think that'll help Felix and Marcus. And Marcus knows the Ganassi car. So it can shorten that learning curve for them as a team technically.
Yeah. Hey, Coyne just announced last week or the week before with Renas, who came from Ed Carpenter.
Renas VK late in the offseason with rebrand, restructure at Ed Carpenter Racing. Alexander Rossi going there. Renas VK on the sidelines until 2 weeks ago. Full-time.
We all knew Renas was going. Like it was.
Yeah, but also it
like
takes
heavily rumored.
It was heavily rumored, but also all the pieces. I mean, you're still building a 3D puzzle that changes all the time, right? Yeah. So, great to see that announced. And our second of 3 rookies, Jacob Abel, was in the championship conversation in the Indy Next Series last year, right up until Louis Foster locked it up.
Yeah.
And won a couple races, was ready to move up. Abel Motorsports, the family-run team, had a really great outing in the Indy 500 as an independent team a couple years ago. Really looking to move into IndyCar full-time with Jacob. Great opportunity with him. And also Dale Coyne, it changes from a sort of a revolving door of drivers.
Yeah, they've got
two full-time drivers all year long. They can build some momentum, build some consistency.
And a lot like Ed, I think Dale is decent at like developing drivers, especially when he has a full season. Like, I mean, he did that with David Malukas, right? David Malukas had some really
Grosjean.
Oh yeah,
Alex Palou.
Yeah,
right.
That is a roster of names that Dale has really helped kind of give them their shot, and they brought it into some real success in the series.
Yep. And now we get to the team I drove for years and years ago.
I think you still have some of their gear in your closet.
I do. I do.
From a long time ago.
Yeah. It
like
may
20
not.
years ago?
Oh, when was that? I drove for them it's only like 17 years, honey. 17 years ago, beginning of 2008, I drove for Prema Power Team, as it was known then, for Prema in the Formula 3 Euro Series race. Finished second in their car at Hockenheim, first race of the season. Unbelievable team, storied history, Formula 2 all the way down through Formula 3, and a lot of different championships in Europe. I believe they know they face an uphill battle. They've got Callum Ilott, who's got a lot of speed, some experience in IndyCar, and Robert Schwartzman, who is another rookie.
Okay.
Comes with a decent amount of Formula 2 experience, I believe it is, out of Europe. I think as a team, Prema has a lot of talent, great talent in engineering and management.
And they showed really well at the test.
They did.
It'll be really interesting to see how they're able to translate that into a whole weekend, because it is like, you can show up at the test and be quick, and that's great. But I feel like if you aren't continually getting faster throughout the weekend at each session, you're left behind by the time qualifying starts.
Absolutely.
So it's
especially at a place like St. Pete where the track changes
so
lap by lap.
Well, and they're gonna have brand new tires. They've never tested these tires before. So the tires are literally like where the rubber hits the road. So it changes so much in how the car feels and how the tire wears down and degrades over a session changes. So it'll be interesting to see.
And I do think they saw the challenge that Carlin faced when they came into the IndyCar series. I think they will benefit from seeing that and understanding the mountain they have to climb. They've got Pierce Phillips at the helm, a couple of great engineers. They had Michael Cannon working with them over the winter, so set them up for success. Will be interesting. I do think race weekends get really intense really quickly.
Well, yeah, because you start the weekend off like kind of slow, right? You got your engineering meeting and a track walk, and then Friday comes and you've got practice. You've probably got some sponsor thing. You've got this other thing. And then you're back in the car for practice again. And then you've got practice and then qualifying, and there's a autograph session thrown in there. There's just not a lot of time. I remember having full 8-hour meetings in the off season about how we were going to block your time so that you had enough to take your 15-minute nap before you got in the car. It was just so hectic, and there's so many demands on your time between the team, the series, your sponsors. Everything is just crazy. So I think it'll be interesting.
I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an incredible season. And we would be remiss if we did not highlight some of the biggest news of the offseason. Fox coming to, or IndyCar coming to Fox. The Fox Sports family has been incredibly supportive so far of IndyCar. 3 45-second or minute and a half.
I don't know.
3 commercials during the Super Bowl. Massive audiences, the largest Super Bowl audience, all exposed to IndyCar. They've done some really great promotion of the series, of the first race. They've got James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell back in the booth as analysts.
And then Will
Buxton coming from Formula One, calling play-by-play.
Yeah. I will say that, we're in California now, obviously, because we're outside in this beautiful weather. And the IndyCar fandom is not as big here as it is in Indianapolis. And, some of our friends, we went to a newer group of friends for the Super Bowl, and they know Charlie was a racing driver and but I don't think they know so much about what that entailed. And I was especially with my tennis friends, and they could care less about sports other than tennis. And I was like, guys, that's what Charlie used to do. And they looked at me like, oh, okay, that's cool. Which to them is super interesting.
So I do think it's a great opportunity for IndyCar to be back. And the fact that it's on Fox, right? Not on a cable channel, not on Fox streaming. And with a cable package with Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, you can see every practice, every qualifying, every race. As well as the Indy Next races on that broadcast partner, same bat channel, same bat time. That's the great thing about it.
And I'm excited to see what they do with the broadcast. There's obviously going to be more eyes on it because there's more. It's just in a better location. You're just going to stumble upon it easier.
It'll be easier for people to find.
Yeah. So I'm excited, and I just miss IndyCar racing. I miss it. I can't wait to watch practice on Friday. So I'll be in Arizona.
I'll be at the racetrack.
Taking the kids to spring training because baseball and IndyCar season do kind of.
And we are Dodgers fans here in the Kimball house, especially after they won the World Series last year.
And our 6-year-old Hannah's really gotten into it. I told her that we were going to go, and she goes, Mom, I love watching baseball.
So they'll watch baseball in the evenings on the West Coast and watch practice, qualifying, in the race. I'll be on site at St. Pete, walking around, talking to people, saying hi to old friends. Couldn't miss the first day of school.
Yep.
Cannot wait for the 2025 NTT IndyCar Series to kick off this weekend. Our plan is to have a conversation, probably a little shorter than this.
Yeah, this was really long.
We'll aim to keep it shorter and do a recap of like the biggest win over the weekend, if it's the race winner or not, biggest surprise over the race weekend, and probably how the race developed and what shocked us and what we can learn from it going forward.
So basically, we're just going to record the conversation we usually have anyway after a race weekend. So join us if you feel like it.